you can plug your hard drive in, but some hard drives, when you purchase them, you'll notice that if you try to go to your hard drive and you try to go make a new folder and it won't let you, it means that your hard drive is actually formatted for a PC computer, but not a Mac. However, you can reformat it. Unfortunately, the computer is facing the wall, so if you have a question, you can just holler it at me. Otherwise, I might not be able to see. If you do, like I said, plug in your hard drive and you notice that you cannot create a folder, it's because you'll have to format your hard drive. And I can put instructions on there so you can format the hard drive. But we're not going to do that now because then I would have to go around to each computer if you had it and help you format it. You can buy some hard drives, like I said, that are Mac specific. If you're a person who is PC and you're only Mac here, you can also partition the hard drive so that way you can have it half Mac, half PC, 60-40, other math that I'm not going to do because I've only had 4 hours of sleep. So you don't have to make it all Mac. I just make mine all Mac because I know that I have a lot of video footage and it takes up a lot of space. So you do have the option of making it both or one. Some of them you'll see, like yours, I think it says, do you want to use this as a backup drive? I would not do that. If you use that on your own computer, you can set it up to that if you leave your hard drive plugged in, it will back up your computer like once a week or once a month, which is great because if it crashes, you're not going to lose anything on your computer. So I'll put something on there to show you how to format your hard drive. It also depends on what kind of Mac operating system you use, but generally you just go to your disk utility and format it. So you could always go to your Mac and you can say disk utility. And this is actually where you go to format your hard drive. But I'm not going to do that because I would lose all my stuff and I would be very sad. So we're going to go ahead and open up Adobe Premiere. You do have a shortcut. If you ever see this little black arrow on a file or a piece of software, this means it's not the actual file. If it's a file or the actual software, it's just a shortcut to that software. So if you double click it, it will open up Adobe Premiere. And it's going to ask you some questions in the beginning. And it's important at this step that you don't just click through. This is that step I was telling you about. If you do not do this step properly, all your stuff will save to the computer hard drive. When you log out, you will lose everything and there's no way for us to, get it back. So this is a step that's very critical. However, it's only critical in the lab. If you own your own computer and you do end up maybe purchasing the Adobe Creative Cloud, you do not have to freak out because your computer is not going to wipe your stuff up. It's just the way IT has the computer set up. So this is just only critical here, not as critical on your own computer. You do have to be careful though because video does take up a lot of space, which could cause your computer to lag and be very slow if you do not use an external hard drive. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new project.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. You don't need to say I'm sorry. Go ahead and interrupt me. One thing you guys, a lot of my students always say sorry when they ask questions. Remember that's my job. Like my job is to answer questions. So please, I know, please, if you interrupt me, that's fine. I'm not going to be offended because I can't see you. I'm used to teaching at a podium where I can look at you guys, but here I'm looking at the wall. So by all means, please interrupt me if you have a question or your computer's messing up. I mean, that's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Okay. So on the hard drive, did you say, is it do you recommend, I don't remember what you just said, keeping more for a Mac? Mine says it's for a Mac. Are these?
You can always, if it says it's for a Mac or a PC, you can always change it to whatever you want. You can change it to part Mac, part PC. If you want it, if you plug it in, it's PC, but you want it all Mac, you can take it all Mac. It's completely up to you, whatever you want.
Is it bad if I just keep it
all
Mac?
No, that's fine. Mine are all Mac, and I was PC before I came to Mississippi State 8 years ago. Honestly, I'll use whatever computer you give me as long as it works.
Yeah.
So now I'm all Mac. And even though I was a PC person, I never formatted it for PC. What's on your Mac side cannot be read on your PC side. What's on your PC side cannot be read on your Mac side. Now, there are ways that some people are able to get it to go both ways. I don't know how to do that in all honesty, because at my university, they had a server. But if you do get that error message with the configuration, we had that, like I said, in that back corner computer, and we just had to restart it and it worked. Fingers crossed that works for you. It's funny, the computers that we had no problem with on Monday are being persnickety. But that's one thing, like I was trying to tell you on the day of lecture, you're dealing with equipment. It doesn't always want to function right and be nice. So you could come in here and be like, the day before it's due, and be like, I'm going to hammer it out, I'm going to get it done. Probably not going to happen. This is the one class I would definitely say do not procrastinate in. Do you remember that song by Little John, Get Low? It's probably way before your time. I played that in my class in Mississippi, and I stopped it before it got bad, because it gets a little bad. But think about what Little John said. Get low. Like, try to show us things from other angles. If you only shoot at 5'9" or 5'6", whatever your height is, it's going to look like we always see it. So, you know, get low and show me stuff from interesting angles. For this is that part I told you that's very critical when you're in the lab. So we're going to make a new project, but if you're ever coming into Premiere and you've already created a project, you can go to Open Project, or you can just double-click on that icon in your hard drive. So we're going to say New Project. This is the part that's extremely important, because if you do not set this up properly, like I told you, Adobe Premiere always looks for Adobe Premiere documents. Now, I use this computer recently, but generally it's going to put it on your computer in the Adobe Premiere folder. And you don't want that. So this is the part that if you do not do properly, you will more than likely be saving to your computer and not your hard drive. So for you guys who are just using your desktop, you know, which is probably all of you, we're going to hit Browse next to Location, and you're going to go to your desktop, and you're going to select that folder that says Achromatic, and that's going to be what we call your scratch disk. For me, I'm going to go to my hard drive, since I already have it saved there, and I'm going to go save it to the location where I have all my stuff for this class. So for me and for you, when you use your hard drive, you're going to then go to your Adobe Premiere Documents. Then I'm going to go to my project folder, which is down here. And then I'm going to say, this is where I want you to save all my stuff. So when you edit, the back of these computers on this side only have a card reader on the back right bottom. These do not. That's why we tell you to buy the card reader. You will take the footage from your card and you will put it on your hard drive. So that way you don't have to have the card and the hard drive.
So for now,
just set it to that folder on the desktop.
Set it to that folder and not our hard drive?
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine. Because today you don't have to save what we're doing today, but to give you an actual, I guess, visual, since we are a very visual class. So I'm going to take my card, my SD card. Again, only the computers on this side of the lab have you do this. On the back bottom right, there's the slit. You need to just plug it straight in, and then you're going to notice that I have a card down here where it says Canon. Now, I only have pictures on here, but so what you'll do is you'll grab your footage and you'll put it into your project folder to make sure that you don't need your card. If you do not put your footage like into raw clips, then you're going to have an issue where you will always have to have the card plugged in with the hard drive. And that means if you erase anything off the card, you're going to have a problem. So if this was my footage, I would just grab this and put it into raw clips, and then it's going to transfer it, and then I'm always going to have my footage there, and then I can eject my card. So you always want to make sure to transfer your footage into your hard drive. That way you don't always have to have both items plugged in, and that way if anything happens to your card, you can still do your project. So for me, again, I'm going to pick this folder, and I'm going to say choose. This is going to then allow me to save all my stuff to that location. And if you click here where it says scratch disk, it's going to let you see that it says same as project. So wherever I'm saving my project, which is up here in location, I'm going to save all my video, all my audio, all my previews, everything. So you want to make sure that all these say same as project, and it will when you first open it up. So it's really important to, again, do this location up here to your hard drive, to your project-specific folder. Down here under capture, you have DV or HDV. HDV is high def, so we can put it under high def, and then we can call it what we want to call it. So if this were your assignment 1, you could call it assignment 1. I'm just going to call it tutorial 2 since this is my second time doing this, and then I'm going to say OK. And then it's going to open up the software. So we're going to talk a little bit about what these windows are, and then we're going to talk about editing. This is just going to be really, really basic editing, and we can get into some more advanced editing in the future. So the first thing I want to talk to you about are what are these windows, what do they do, what do we call things. One thing I will say is in tutorials, sometimes I'll do the first thing quickly, then I'll go back and do it 3 or 4 times. Usually 2 or 3 times. But if you need me to repeat it, do not be afraid to say, hey, can you do it one more time? Because there's probably somebody else in the classroom who wants me to do it one more time. It's just I know some of you probably already know this. So if I ever say menu, I'm talking about up here in the top white. It's just like in Microsoft Word. You know, you guys are smarter than you think you are. Even if you've never used this software, you know how to open something in Word. It's the same thing here. Now, it's not opening files, we're importing files. So we're bringing things into this software. But saving, copying, cutting, all the same hotkeys that you have in Microsoft Word are in here. So if I ever say menu, these are your menus up top. You'll notice that underneath the name of our project, you'll see it says assembly. These are basically different options for how the software will look. It's just going to show you different things. So people, when they're assembling their project, might go to assembly, and it's easy to import media. Here, if you click on this, it's set up to make it easier for you when it comes to editing. Here is good if you're going to do some color correction and you need to make some minor color adjustments. It's going to show you the windows that you need to make that easier or have easier access. Effects, if you need to add transitions, other video effects or filters. Audio, this is good if you need to edit audio. It makes your life a little bit easier when it comes to editing audio. Titles, allows you to create graphics or titles. No, this is not like After Effects or Photoshop, but titles are more like just a little bit of text. And libraries just shows you where you have files located. So I personally tend to stick in the editing view mode, but you know, it's up to you what you want to use. If you like the assembly for when you're assembling and importing items, that's completely fine. I just tend to stick with editing. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, it's just a personal preference. So source is where you view clips and make them shorter or longer or edit your audio. Program shows you what is in your project that you've already started creating. Your timeline, if you've ever used Final Cut Pro, is what we often call our sequence. Sequence and timeline, potato, they're similar right here. So your sequence is where you kind of, or timeline, excuse me, is where you put together your project and your clips and your footage. Over here in the middle is what we call your toolbar. If you've ever used any Adobe software, you'll notice that we have a little on the bottom right corner, a triangle. What that triangle means is if you click and hold on that tool, there are tools with similar functions behind it. It's just because they don't want a really big toolbar in the software, they want to make it a little bit smaller. So if you click and hold, you'll see tools similar or that have similar functions. But the one you definitely want to leave, you often want to have it on, is your top one, which is your selection tool. That allows you to pick up clips, to move audio levels. So your selection tool is a really good tool to use. And you'll notice when I move my arrow over something, if I let it rest there for a second, it's going to tell you what that tool is. Track selection forward, blade tool, razor blade tool. And then the letter next to it is the hotkey that you can press on the keypad to select that. So we noticed that razor blade had C for the hot tool for cut probably. So I could hit C for cut if I need to cut something, and then I can put V to go back to my arrow. So I never really have to go back and move my mouse around. I can just change it to whatever tool I want based on the hotkeys. And I know the hotkeys just because I edit a lot. But if you don't know them, again, you can move your arrow over it and it'll show you what the hotkey is. Over here on your right are your audio meters that show you audio. For this project, remember, they like starting you out with no audio. So we're going to continue to do that. So you will not really see these moving around a whole lot, which is why I took out the audio. Over here is what we call your browser or project window. You can see it tells me the name of my project, and I can import media into the software. Or I can also just browse and I can find where that data is on my computer. Either way is fine, but I tend to import, and it's pretty easy to import. So I'm going to show you how to import these clips and bring them into your software. The one thing that is a little confusing with students is they think open opens a file. Yeah, but in Adobe Premiere we have to import or bring things into the software to edit. So we do need to have this window selected, and you can press Command I, or you can go up to your File, Import, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to navigate to your folder. So for you guys that would be desktop and then the folder. For me it would be on my hard drive. How do I select multiple clips? Because you don't want to have to just go File, Import, bring it. Shift key. Shift key is great. So if I click on the top one and I hold the Shift key and I click on the bottom one, Shift key will select between the top click and the bottom click. And then I can say Import. It should let you import it. There we go. My computer is just having a case of the Mondays. So Shift key, again, I'll do that one more time. I have to have this window selected. I can go up to the File, Import, or I like to personally hit Command I. I'll navigate to where my footage is on my hard drive. For you guys today, it's the desktop. I'm going to click once on the top file. I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to click down on the bottom file. Shift selects between two clicks. Then I can say Import, and now I have all my files in here. Now we were talking about folders and how folders can keep you organized. Not only is that something you want to think about for your hard drive, but it's also something you want to think about for your project. So in Adobe Premiere, you'll notice there is this little folder down here. But when you move your arrow over it, it doesn't call it a folder, it calls it a bin. So to create a new bin, you can click on this folder and you can label it, you know, clips or footage or raw clips, whatever you want to call it, something that you know what it is, and we're going to move all those clips into that. There is another way that you can create a new bin. The other way is you can go up to File, New, Bin, or for me, I like hotkeys, saves me time. It would be Command B. So if I have this window selected, I can say Command B, and it has a bin, and I can say footage, or whatever I want to call it. My computer is lagging. Hardcore. Hardcore. There we go. Footage. And then I can select those clips and just drag those clips into that bin to keep myself organized. So I'll do that again. You'll also notice you cannot go and make a new bin if you do not have the proper window selected. You have to think of this software as being either really smart and crafty or really stupid. Okay, so if you don't have the proper window selected, it will not let you make a bin. So you do have to have this project browser window selected. I could create a new bin, again with the folder on the bottom, or Command B, or File, New, Bin. Then all we have to do is click, hold, and drag and drop items into that folder, and now we have everything in a footage folder, which is great. If you do not like seeing these as big icons, you'll notice that on the bottom left, there's something that says List View. So if you don't like seeing the big files, you can go to List View, and you'll notice it's only going to have the name of it. And this purple film icon means that it's a video clip. But if you like seeing the actual images, you can just use this big square, and that allows you to actually see it as an image. So now I have all these video clips in here. What we're going to do is we're going to start editing and moving clips around. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with 2 clips, but then I'm going to let you guys edit, and you do not have to start with the 2 clips we used. Some people went back and changed to start with a different clip. This is footage from a short film that my students and I created on the weekend in Mississippi, and it won first place in the Magnolia Independent Film Festival in the student division. And this is just one of the scenes. Like I've told some of you, some people have emailed me, hey, I'm worried about the rain, what do we do? We had a totally different location scouted out and set to record, but then it was raining. And we were renting equipment. You can actually rent equipment online, and we could not take the rented equipment out in the rain, so this was the only location we could go to. So it was frustrating because all the shots and the locations we wanted wasn't available, but this was our backup because we knew rain was in the forecast. You always want to have a backup plan. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to edit this long shot clip. So we're going to double click it. You can also drag and drop it up here, but double click is a quick way. And this will bring it up into our source window. Or if you've used Final Cut Pro, we call it your viewer. I like calling it the viewer because I'm viewing the clip. I'm looking at what the clip's got going on. So a couple things about this window. Whenever I say playhead, it's this little blue upside down house. This playhead, you can drag it, you can move it, or if you hit the space bar, that plays it. Or you can play with the keys down here. A playhead shows you one single frame of video. But you can drag it where you want. You can click, hold, and drag. You can click once and it'll go to where you click. So that is your playhead. The reason this shot, some people were talking about it last class, why does this shot have so much space up here? This is where they had their title information of the short film come up. So that's why it's a long shot and it's got this space up here. So in the past, how have you guys shortened clips? Some of you raised your hand that you've done nonlinear editing. How have you guys shortened the length of a clip in the past?
I hit the drag wheel only, and then I narrow it to where I want it.
Okay. So you drag it to where you want it. Okay. There also is other options.
In like Final Cut Pro, I don't know how to explain it, but like it has like all your clips are like lined up, and then I just like select the part I don't want and delete it. Yep.
So what Izzy was saying is down here you can also adjust it. We haven't gotten anything down there yet. But the other method is in and out point. So the one thing you'll notice about editing is there's different ways to edit. It's just a personal preference. That's why there's 3 or 4 ways to do things. It's just a personal preference. The way I like to edit is with in and out points, which is if you look up here where I put my arrow, this is what the in point symbol is, this is what the out point symbol is. You could click on these buttons, or if I hit space bar, I can do what's called marking on the fly. I can hit I and say this is where I want my clip to start, and I could say, no, you know what, I want it to start here now. So you can just let it play, and you can then hit in, I for in, and when I want it to stop, I can hit O, and then that's where it's going to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it right, move your leg, there. So now if you hit spacebar again, it'll stop it. So play is spacebar, stop is spacebar, or you can use these buttons up here. Now the clip I have is only going to be in this area right here, the lighter area. Over here, we still will have this option to go back and make it longer or shorter if we wanted. So what I want you to do is with this clip, we're going to put in and out points on it just for this method, and then we're going to move it. Before we put in and out points on there, how do you decide where to put in and out points? What are some things you might look for or think about? So maybe when he was already entering in the screen, because otherwise maybe it was just a long wait. So maybe there's some kind of action that makes it where we want to start it. So that's a good option. What else can we think about? Sure. The pacing. Is it going to be something where you'll see these people are going to be talking and then there's this awkward silence where they're just sitting because they're strangers and it's just awkward? The shot is long because they want you to feel awkward. So if you are needing that longer shot, or if you need a quicker shot based on, you know, the mood or the feel of your piece. The other thing is sometimes maybe the camera shakes. You can actually edit out the camera shake by just adjusting where you put your in point. So I look for creative things like you guys are saying. What is it going with my storytelling? Is it going with my pace? But also, did I bobble the camera? If I bobbled the camera, I'll wait till the camera smooths out and then I'll start my in point if I can. So these are things you want to think about. So go ahead and create an in and an out point for this shot. And then we're going to start building it on the timeline like Izzy was saying. And then you have another option to edit and make the length different. Codec. Is that something, a word you've heard before in the past? I've seen some nods and some no nods. Does anyone know what codec really relates to or stands for? It's format. It's the format and the way that it writes the file. Different codecs for different situations. If you're putting your video up on the web, it's going to have a certain codec or file format where it condenses it down to make it upload to the internet quicker. If you're exporting this video footage out to make a movie, we're not going to use the same format or codec that we did for the internet. You do have to be technical with this degree, with this class, with other classes. When you shoot, you need to be aware of what format you're shooting with. When you're editing, you need to know the format you shot on. You also need to know the format of where it's going. Because if we use too many formats, it's going to mess with your footage and it's not going to either come out the right size or it's not going to come out of good quality. So when you make sequences, I'm just going to show you this. I don't need you to do this, but if you go up to your sequence, if I go File, New Sequence, it's going to ask me what format do I want. If I'd used DVNTSC, this is taped footage. It's going to be 4:3, and it's going to be taped, which is a poor quality. If I put my really high quality file on a poor quality sequence, the format's going to come out, it's not going to look right, it's not going to be good quality. So I have to know what I shot on to know what format to pick. Otherwise, the format's not going to come out right. ABC HD is what we've used in the past at my last university. It just depends. If you're shooting on a DSLR, if you're shooting on a RED, which I would love, but those things are like an arm, a leg, and a kidney in your firstborn child. You also have I and P. And you'll notice I and P on a lot of these formats. Does anyone know what I stands for or the P stands for? I is for interlace, P is for progressive. It deals with how your video meets together. Your video footage is not just one big picture. It's like pixels and lines created together to create that picture. Interlace is for television. Progressive is for the internet. If you took your video, say you made a great documentary and you want to put it on if you wanted to take a documentary you made and said, hey, let's put this on your TV show, it would be great. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. If you bring them a progressive file, there is no way in God's green earth that video footage is going out on that television. P is for the internet, I is for television. So just keep that in mind. It's the way that your video is put together. So yeah, you have to be technical and know all this, and I tend to pick it in here, but Adobe Premiere is very nice. If you drag your footage to the sequence, it'll format it for whatever that clip is. So if I just go ahead and drag and drop here, it's going to format it for my sequence. Oh, It's because I don't have the right tool selected. I have the hand selected. You have to have the Moves tool selected to drag and drop, and it is going to format it for me based on what the footage is. The problem is if you drop a picture first, it's going to be formatted for a picture. So you always want to drop your video footage first. So now we have what we call our sequence. This is where we can build our project. Like Izzy was saying, you can go to the end of your clip with your arrow selected, your move or selection arrow selected. And if you click or move your mouse over, you'll see it has a bracket with an arrow. What that means is that I can shorten this clip if I need it to be shorter. It's called trimming. This is called trimming. I can click, hold, and drag it, and I can see the video get shorter. Or I can click, hold, and drag it the opposite way, and I can make the video longer. You can only do this if you have more footage to give, okay? So there's another way you can import things to the timeline. So if you'll watch this up here, this will just show you different options. A lot of students like the drag and drop method. They love it, which is fine. They do also have some other methods where you can, I'm just going to grab a random clip. We'll go with this clip. So he sat down and he crossed his leg. So I can put another clip on this timeline. Say this is right here. But then I realize I want to put a clip between these two clips. Some students will then drag all the footage over to the right and then put the clip in. You don't have to do that. You have different options on how to get clips down to the timeline. You have these buttons over here that say Insert, Overwrite. If I move my playhead to in between these two clips, which I can drag the playhead, or if you look at your keyboard, you'll see on the up and down arrow, it says if I hit the up arrow, it'll go to the beginning of a clip. If I hit the down arrow, it'll go to the end of the clip. So if I need to get a clip in between these two clips, say it's a different clip we'll just throw something in there. I can do this clip, which I'm not even going to look at the in and out points. I can say I need this clip to go in between here. I can have my in and out points selected, and I can go to where it says Insert, and now it's going to bump that clip down to where it's in between those clips. So Insert will insert between two clips, and then the other option is called Overwrite. And what Overwrite does, if you look up here, it'll overwrite wherever the playhead is. So wherever your playhead is on your sequence, right here, is where that endpoint is going to go. So if I hit Overwrite, it's going to overwrite it to the sequence. So those are your three methods of getting your clips to your sequence. So the thing about Overwrite you'll notice is the playhead will always jump to the end of the clip. This means you have to be careful. If you know Overwrite always overwrites where the playhead is, if I hit Overwrite again, you're going to notice it's going to cut this clip in half and overwrite from here over. So if you're not careful, if you use the Overwrite method, something like this can happen where I can click it. Oops, that's Insert. It'll insert between those 2 points, or I can overwrite and now I lost part of that clip. So you do have to be careful if you use the Insert or the Overwrite method. Wherever your playhead is where that clip will then go. So you can use either of those methods, whichever you prefer, does not matter. So what do we need to think about when we're looking at this clip and how we decide what clip we put in next? What are some things you might think about when you're trying to figure out which one you want to do next from this clip? Continuity. Ooh, love the jargon. Continuity. We need to make sure that their body positions match and that her face is kind of pointed in the same direction. He has his leg in the same direction. If you look at this clip right here, what do you notice about his leg here versus his leg? Oh, wait, those match up. That's good. Where's the other one we used? I think, is it? This one matches up, this one matches up. There's one that we used last class where his leg was the wrong leg. Let's see, is it this one? No. So you have to be careful. If they put up the incorrect leg, then that's something that's going to be a problem. Then you might have to end it before he puts his leg up. One thing that makes things easier is if you edit on the action. Like, I like a lot of action movies and kung fu. And when you see action movies, it's not like the person hits the other person's arm and you see it hit and it stays there and then it moves. When you watch action films, they're doing it while it's still moving. Because if you edit while things are moving, it's harder for the untrained eye to see the continuity error. So if it's just a little bit higher up on the forearm, most people aren't going to notice because you're editing on the action. So say you have an issue with the leg, like maybe it's not as far back or it's too far forward. If you edit while he's moving the leg in the first clip in the out point and then the in point of that next clip is still moving, it's going to be harder for people to see the continuity errors if there are errors. So something to think about for when you do your assignment or when you're editing this today. So I'm going to look at this right here and I'm going to try to match it up with one of these other clips. It could be one where it's closer up and then he comes in. It could be one where it's further away. So what I want you to do now is work on editing these clips together, and I'm going to come around and give you some feedback. So you're going to edit these together. I will say that this is not all the coverage we did. We had a lot of coverage, lots of takes from each angle, from each side. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many for your first tutorial.